Charles, good to see you again.
Yes. Hello, Father Lomnitzer. How are you?
Doing very well. Everything's going pretty smoothly. How are you?
Living the dream. Another day in paradise right here in the Washington, D.C. area. A little overcast, but can't complain. Weather's staying good. How are things in Connecticut?
Things are great. It's overcast here as well. I have this problem of thinking the weather is the same in all parts of the world as Connecticut, but that's my egocentrism. But I did just go to the zoo a few days ago, and it was a beautiful day. I was with my family. My niece was in town, obviously with my brother, and so my niece and my nephew were at the zoo, and so we all went to hang out with them. But they're young. My niece is just over a year old, and my nephew's a few months old. So I think the person who got the most enjoyment out of the zoo was me.
Now, who was more well behaved, the niece and nephew, or the animals?
My niece and nephew were good. My nephew was asleep the majority of the time, which is amazing. And then my niece was very good. She needed to be carried the whole time, which was interesting to see my brother in action like that. And the animals were good. I don't know if you remember, a few years ago, you and I went to the Washington, D.C. Zoo.
Yes, we did.
And it was terrible. There were no animals.
Well, the animals were, it was summer. They were hot. They were in their caves, not really doing very much. The fish were interesting because the fish were indoors. But so the animals were more lively in the Connecticut Zoo.
Yeah, the Connecticut Zoo, the Beardsley Zoo in Bridgeport is a very interesting place. It was like it's the only zoo in Connecticut. It's the only place you can go, kind of locally. The next closest zoo is in the Bronx. And we went there for every field trip in elementary school. Like, that was just what we did. And instead of going to the beach and stuff, we'd always meet up at the zoo with families. So it was a little different than I remembered it from when I was 9.
Is everything smaller than you remember it?
Yes. My brother even said it. He goes, "This used to be so much bigger." And my mom goes, "Used to be so much smaller."
That's very apt analysis to growing up. So, but which animal was the highlight of the whole zoo experience?
The otters have always been my favorite because they're the most playful. There was only one otter, and he's just swimming around. They can swim up to 40 miles per hour. I learned from the sign. That's probably wrong. I might not be remembering it.
Pretty fast.
Maybe it's 8
40
miles.
kilometers an hour. They say 8 miles an hour.
It's one of those.
So we'll have someone please send in the correction on how fast otters can swim, because 40 miles an hour does sound pretty fast. But you never know. Maybe with the current, that kind of gets them going along. So otters were the highlight. There's only one otter, though. So the otter was the highlight.
Otter was the highlight, yeah. There used to be a tiger there. I don't know where the tiger went.
Yeah. Well, that's... no one knows where the tiger went. Like, there's a tiger cage, and the guy's like, "It used to be here. I don't know where it went." Or was it like, no, I kind of remember seeing a tiger, and you couldn't find it again where that tiger was.
Yeah, no, there was the tiger cage is right by where the carousel is, and the cage is still there, but there's no signs saying that, like, here is the tiger. So not sure what happened.
I think when the tiger was there, probably saw the carousel as like a rotisserie chicken, like, or those hot dogs at a gas station just rotating, and it just kind of, it's tough for a tiger to see food rotating around in front of it. But, well, I'm glad it sounds like the tiger was more of maybe relocated or gone to greener pastures rather than the tiger has escaped and no one knows where it is. So that's good. And which animal was the biggest disappointment?
That's a great question. Yeah, I didn't think about that.
This is a very deep question. I didn't realize that. So,
there was
was there one you're like, oh, yeah?
There was a red panda that's new to the exhibit, and so it was kind of shy and getting used to its new digs. So it was kind of just sitting there.
That's interesting. I learned that red pandas aren't actually pandas. Like, they're not at all like evolutionarily related to each other compared to like other things. So it's kind of like the Tasmanian devil and the devil are not the same, right? So
well, that leads us to an interesting transition because our guest today is really, I don't want to say obsessed, but he's very into the world of exorcisms and such, mostly through his job. He's not an exorcist himself, but our friend Grady is a content creator, and he's the founder of the Social Thomist, Catholic social media agency. And for the past 5 years, he's worked across the creator economy. I don't know what a creator economy is. I hope you can explain it to me. He works with tech startups to managing content for pop artists and even Catholic exorcists. So he'll have a lot of insight on maybe the Tasmanian devil and devil relationship. Alongside his own agency, the Social Thomist, he's built a following of his own. Ever since I've been on Instagram for a few days, everyone's like, you and Grady are friends. So his fame has been helping me. And Charles, we know that he's being most known for his American Basilica Pilgrimage. We've had the privilege of joining him on one of these trips. And he's going to document his journey to visit all 94 basilicas in the U.S. Grady, welcome to White Collars.
Thanks, guys. It's good to be with you. And yes, our little Basilica pilgrimage in July was a blast. So I'm glad you guys were along for the ride.
That was pretty interesting. Sorry, Grady, why don't you tell our fine listenership here about that adventure, right, from your perspective?
Well, so there are a bunch of these mission basilicas on the West Coast, and I had been to all of them except for this last one at Carmel by the Sea. And when we got there, I'd kind of forgotten that this is where Junipero Serra is buried. So when we got there, we got to see his tomb and see the property, and there's a lot of like museum exhibits and things like that. So it was great. It was a great little adventure and quite the surprise to see a saint. And then Father Lomnitzer was telling us that Junipero Serra was a part of his kind of vocation story. So that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, it was when we were, Charles and I were at Catholic U. I don't know if you were there as a student yet, Grady.
Grady was still
I was
in
a
middle
baby.
school,
I was still in high school.
In 2015, when Pope Francis came to canonize Junipero Serra on the steps of the Basilica of the Immaculate Conception, the National Shrine, right? The Basilica of the National Shrine of the Immaculate Conception, where you serve Mass a lot, Grady, right?
It's a big name. I do. Yeah, I love it. I mean, it was a big part of my kind of college experience. And then, I started serving when I was, I think, a freshman. It was like right away. And then I still every Sunday and then holy days and things like that. So I love it. I mean, it's just a beautiful place. And I think it's the prettiest church in America. Charles might, have his other opinions on, Gothic churches, but I love Romanesque, Byzantine. It's just spectacular. So.
Yeah, I do have some very hot takes on that, but I won't share them now. So sorry, Father. Go ahead.
No, Charles, tell the story about how the Basilica was almost Gothic.
Yeah, well, this is one of my favorite rants. So the Catholic University of America, our beloved alma mater of all three of us, was designed in the collegiate Gothic style, beginning with Caldwell Hall, which was constructed in 1889. And then they decided they needed a chapel, or a more robust chapel, for the campus. So they were going to build one, and the original plans were Gothic. And then at some point they realized that the National Cathedral, from our fine Episcopalian brethren, was also going to be Gothic. And so they said, well, you can't have two Gothic churches in D.C., which I don't know where that's a rule. Tell France. They have more than one Gothic church in every city. So they switched to the logical pivot, which was Byzantine Romanesque, which never coexisted architecturally at any point in history until now. So it's in Northeast DC. It's got its own charm, but if it was up to me, it would be Gothic. So I'm working on a petition if anyone wants to co-sign it.
It's an architectural style crossover that we didn't know that we needed, but we now have. So.
Oh, see, you can spin anything, Grady. That's your content creatorness. So yeah. But no, it's a fine place, Grady, and whenever I don't know where Grady is, I assume he's at the Basilica.
That's usually where I am, in some pew sitting in a corner somewhere. So
Grady, is that Basilica, your time at the shrine, is that what inspired your little pilgrimage and journey to see all the basilicas in the U.S.?
Yeah, so I visited the Basilica in D.C. for the Vigil for Life, which is the Mass before the March for Life every year. I was a sophomore in high school. And we visited, and I just immediately fell in love with it and just felt at home. And of course, this was a time where you start thinking about college, and I was kind of just amazed by the fact of like, wow, like someone you could go to school here and like have access to this beautiful place every day. So Catholic U kind of became my obsession, and the Basilica became like a place where I just always wanted to spend time. So throughout high school, just prayed like crazy that I'd be able to go. And then my senior year, I went back to DC for the Vigil for Life again, and this was like 3 months before the decision deadline for universities, and I still didn't have enough scholarships to be able to go. And I basically just knelt upstairs after the mass and said, "Lord, I want to come here so bad, and I know that it'll be good for my faith, but I can't afford it. But if you want me to come here, I know it'll happen. And if you allow me to come here, I'll come and visit you here at the Basilica every day." So that was my little prayer. And then I went back home. And within a few weeks, I got a letter in the mail from Catholic U saying, "We'd like to interview you for a full ride." And I was like, oh my God. So jumped on a plane, flew back down to DC, interviewed, got the scholarship. And then we had like, a very limited amount of time to figure out the whole room and board thing, because even though it covered tuition, I still had, like the $15,000-$20,000 a year in room and board. So I was like, gosh, like, how am I going to figure this out in like a matter of days? And then within like a week, enough private scholarships came through to fund the remaining amount for the 4 years. So immediately it all got figured out, and I was able to go to Catholic U for nothing. So when I went to Catholic my freshman year, I visited, got to fulfill that promise, every day at the Basilica. And I would just sit upstairs. Sometimes I'd pray rosary. Sometimes I would just kind of talk with God, or even just close my eyes. But we just visit him there. And I think that's where like my spiritual life kind of really developed, is just in those silent moments. And so, yeah, it's a very important place to me. It was a big part of coming to DC and the life that I have now. So I'm very grateful.
Was that the first basilica you'd ever been to, Grady, in
Yeah.
DC?
Yeah. I mean, I'm from Southern Maine, and I never went anywhere as a kid. I mean, we never went on, extravagant vacations or anything. So yeah, that was like the first big church I had seen. Like I had never seen even like a big mass like that, like all these people flooding into a church. So when I got there, I was just like in awe of, not just the building, but just the community that was there. So yeah, so it was kind of my first taste of like, wow, this is Catholicism. This is what it's all about. So yeah, I mean, in Maine, our biggest church. I mean, we have a basilica in Maine. It's the one in Lewiston, which I hadn't been to until actually this past year. But it's not a very Catholic state anymore.
Mhm.
Like when I was a kid, it used to be super Catholic. I mean, we used to have tons of retreats, and the masses were always full with people. And now, like, churches are shutting down. There's only like 26 parish priests left for the whole state, and then they bring in the rest from other countries. So it's a different world. So yeah, I think it's good for Catholics like myself that were maybe growing up in a state that's not on the up to come to a place like DC where it's just thriving.
So would you
Yeah,
say
no,
you were
exactly.
would you say you were pretty like a cradle Catholic, pretty faithful before, or you were like all in on Catholicism, or did CUA kind of deepen it?
Yeah, I was definitely Catholic. I mean, my parents are reverts. They grew up Catholic, but it was during like the 60s and 70s, and everyone was kind of Catholic, just by tradition, but not really about relationship with God. So they were away from the faith for many years. They got married, weren't practicing for like the first 10 years of their marriage, and then they had a conversion, which was quite radical. And my sister and I were born from that. So as we grew up, kind of understanding the spiritual life from the perspective of two parents who didn't have it for a big part of their life, like it just came very natural. And like they just shared their kind of authentic stories of life is not great when you're not living your faith. So it just kind of, we grew up with it in the house, and we all practiced, I also served and went to retreats and stuff. But I do think that coming to DC, it was just a new experience. It totally kind of livened my faith, but I did have it growing up. But obviously, it's like it comes in different waves, and I think Catholic U was a tsunami, which was great.
Yeah, no, Catholic U is a great place to really see the church fully alive, right? And to interact with people who take their faith seriously, but take other things seriously, right? Their academics, their
For sure.
internships, their other extracurriculars. And so, Grady, you were an entrepreneurship major, is that right? Is that what's called? I don't remember that being a major
I
when I
wish there was an
started.
entrepreneurship
Yeah.
major. It's a minor. So I did the business strategy management operations it's a BSBA in business administration. So I did
Jeez.
that. And yeah, it's a lot of words. And then the minor in entrepreneurship through the Sioka Center. I will say that the minor in entrepreneurship at the Sioka Center was definitely the highlight of college for me. I mean, like Andreas Widmer, Luke Burgess, Brian Walsh, Frederick Sote, like just amazing people. And that's kind of where I fell in love with business at a whole new level. I always loved business, but the Sioka Center kind of set up my philosophy on, how to create things to serve God and neighbor. And yeah, it really changed my life. And they're all now mentors and friends. And it was a real grace. I mean, when I was at Catholic U, I worked a lot with the startups. I fell in love with tech. And then when I graduated, I started to do more in like the social media world. And all the Sioka people were kind of instrumental in guiding me because I'm very all over the place. Especially when I graduated, I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. So having good mentors like that makes all the difference.
What do you think is the most significant thing a mentor, or like a most significant lesson that some of the mentors you've had have given you or have helped you, that you kind of stays with you?
The greatest piece of advice I've gotten thus far in my career has been from Andreas. And I was going through a situation with just, you know, building a business and, trying to focus on maximizing, revenue and profit, but also mission and also taking risks and like, foregoing short term cash in the pursuit of like long term value. And I was really wrestling with this. And Andreas Widmer said, Grady, he called me one day and he said, you can always make more money, right? Like take the risk or do the thing that is a little outside the box because at the end of the day, you can always go back and make more money or, do something different to, make up that cash in the future. So that was a great piece of advice, and it's really shaped kind of how I view business that yes, it's about profit and yes, it's about revenue, but, sometimes take that short-term risk and it will hopefully benefit you in the long run. So, little things like that, little tidbits. I also say Brian Walsh, who I worked for in college, he started a company called Tipio, and I was his intern my junior year of college. And same thing, like he was so patient with me as I was kind of jumping around in the first year after graduation. And, he just kind of taught me how to discern well and process different opportunities. So, yeah, I think part of being a mentor is listening and then giving feedback that's really kind of unique to the situation. And they do that so well. And I'm just very grateful for it.
Yeah, and now you're a bit of a mentor yourself, Grady, right? Is that correct? Helping students and others
I try.
become better.
I'm not as wise as some of these other mentors at the Yoga Center, but I try to give some advice where I can and just little lessons that I've learned along the way. It's being a recent grad. I kind of, we all know what it's like to be in the shoes of a sophomore or junior or senior in college. So occasionally I'll go back and speak at Catholic U, especially for Andreas' class. And, I always just try to think about how they're thinking, because when you're in college, like you're so focused on like making it and you have to like get all your ducks in a row quickly. And there's just so much pressure. And now that I'm graduated and I'm 26, I'm kind of just like looking back, it's like, just relax. Like it's all going to be fine. Just have some discernment and a good prayer life and it'll all kind of flow together. But, so I try to give advice where I can and it's fun to watch people grow and it always humbles me when they reach out for advice. So, and I try to give it because people always gave it to me.
Great. Tell us about some of the highs and lows of founding your own company, your own kind of media platform.
It's
Media
been a bit of a roller
empire that he
coaster.
started, right? So, yes.
Say it again, Charles.
Yeah, your media empire, I think, is the
Yeah.
technical term.
I don't know about empire, but no, it's definitely been really kind of interesting. So when I graduated, I'll back up a little bit. when I graduated Catholic U, I worked in fintech for all of like 8 weeks, and I realized that I absolutely hated it, and I was just miserable. So I left and really felt this call to get into social media. I had always loved social media, and I decided I was going to work for something in that space to just kind of learn some of the skills. And that's what I did. I worked for a creator tech company, which was a great platform. I learned a lot, and just from the brand side, from the creator side. And then I left and started managing socials, just kind of freelance for some pop artists. I've always loved music and got to travel with them a little bit and just help them strategize and figure out the best approach. And that was a lot of fun, loved it, but still kind of felt this restlessness. And then kind of discerned, well, let's do this in the Catholic world. And originally it was like, oh, I'll just have a couple clients. And then it kept growing into trying to kind of like pioneer the future of Catholic content in a small way and just kind of be a part of it. And it's been amazing to see, like, over the last few years, even just what content has turned into, especially in the Catholic world. Like, it's unbelievable the amount of Catholic content creators that are now on the internet. And, but building an agency that has support staff and clients and some structure and just kind of learning how to systemize things. And I'm still very much learning this. It's really hard. I mean, it's especially an agency, like it's so reliant on like human bodies to actually do the work. So hiring and finding the right people has been incredibly challenging, but also has kind of taught me what to look for and how to identify talent and how to incentivize them and be bought into the mission. So, yeah, it's been kind of interesting to learn that, but boy, it's tough. I mean, thank God for, like we were saying, these mentors. I don't know how I would do it without guidance because it's challenging, but it's also very rewarding. I get a ton of freedom to just kind of do what I want to do, and I have a great kind of small part-time staff that helps. So it gives me the flexibility to travel and kind of live my life. So I love it. I mean, social media has been just a spectacular industry. So yeah, but
Yeah.
kind of still learning.
Yeah, you're the 98th most influential Catholic on social media, isn't that right? According to some online ranking. So we're very privileged to have
by
you.
some obscure online ranking, who
Yes.
knows, who the judges of that were, but
Yeah, but no, it is true, Grady. You have really, I can tell, like the way you approach social media is it's very deliberate and it works, right? Like I think you've been very successful with your clients and finding ways to hit the algorithm just right and share the message. I know you work with a lot of Catholic creators and priests and other institutions like that. But you talked a little bit about hiring. So, like, what are some things when you're hiring someone to support you in your work? What are like red flags you're looking for, like that disqualify someone instantly? And then what are sort of green flags, things that you really, really look for when you're hiring someone?
Yeah. When I'm hiring creators or people to collaborate on accounts, the biggest kind of couple things first is they have to be mission aligned. If they don't have a strong prayer life or a love of the church, what they create just does not echo beauty at all. And I've tried to hire people who aren't Catholic or maybe are kind of lukewarm, but are really good designers. And it never works. It's like they know how to design well and like use Adobe or use Photoshop. But when it comes to like, hey, I really want to create something beautiful, whether it's like a Marian post or a post for a priest about vocation or whatever it is, like if their mind understands the skill, but their heart and soul aren't really understanding what beauty is, it just falls flat with the audience. So that's the biggest thing. That being said, there is a real need for Catholic creative talent that have really good technical skill. And I think this is an area where some universities and some programs are trying to teach kind of this next generation of Catholic creatives, for lack of a better word. But there's still a big need for that. People who know how to edit video well and use Adobe or these other platforms. But I will say that it is a growing population of really amazing like photographers and videographers out there and stuff that are just have an eye for beauty, and it's great to see it. So I try to partner with them as much as I can, and just leverage their skill. But that's definitely something I consider. And then for me, it's a lot of kind of personality, to be honest with you. Like there's certain types of people that I really love working with. I'm kind of an all-in personality. Like I like, and this isn't for everybody, but I need to be able to text people on a weekend or in the evenings, and I kind of expect some sort of response. Like, I'm not really a 9 to 5 worker because social media is not a 9 to 5 thing. It's like social media is a machine that's constantly rolling. So having people that are very responsive is very important to me. That's just kind of my style. And it gives us leverage too, that when something exciting in the news happens, or um, you know, maybe it's like something in that own like a client's life that's kind of hot in the moment, it gives us the flexibility to act on it quickly. And ultimately that's going to lead to further success. So you got to kind of be on the ball. So yeah, those are kind of a few things that I look for. The ones that I do work with now are amazing, and I'm very fortunate that they've kind of been with me for a while. A couple of years now. I started in 2022. The first like 9 months, I was kind of on my own, and then I hired a staff. But they've all kind of stuck by my side, and I try to treat them well and pay them well, and all things like that. So I pray that it's mutually beneficial,
I,
but they seem to be
I
very
agree
happy.
with a lot what you said about your first point. We're in the hiring process now for a new music director, and it's stressful because you're sorting through a lot of applications, a lot of resumes, right? And some things scream at you on paper like really impressive, and then you talk to someone and it's a little off, right? It doesn't click or something. But the whole mission alignment, right, is so important because I can like kind of give you the guidelines and the frame for how we want to operate here and like the culture, right? But I can't teach you virtue. I can't teach you discipline. I can't teach you prayer, right? But I can teach you the job in a sense, or I can help you figure out what I want, what my pastor wants. But I can't teach virtue. So I think like that virtue based hiring, which seems to be more and more popular in the secular world as well, of just like, I want people who are disciplined, who are self taught, right? Because, and I learned this from my brother who works for the Knights of Columbus. This is primarily how they hire. And then there's that Charles Koch book, which is really good, Good Prophets. And that's how he talks about um, virtue based hiring, right? And because that's how you make the culture what you want it to be, right? People make culture.
Culture eats strategy for breakfast. It's like the famous line. It's important. In your own parish, like hiring a music director, what has that process been like in terms of like finding good talent in the music world, but also people who love their faith? Is it a challenge? Are there a lot of them
Yeah,
out there?
it's
I'm just kind
a
of
high
curious.
demand, low supply kind of job, right? I think uh, there are really talented musicians, some who are just not Catholic, and then there's some people who are really talented in like the sacred music that we're looking for, but um, how do I say this charitably? May not have like the best like workability, right? Artists are experts in their field, and they should be. They worked really hard, they trained, right? And so I think sometimes there's like the Catholic person that you want, but the flexibility, right? It's an artist. This is their craft. And so to be able to try to tell them like, actually, no, we need to do this. Or in my parish, right, we're trying to grow into something. And so some people aren't really willing to wait to the ideal. Um, and so that's difficult. So what we've been doing is kind of, we do an interview, right? To try to suss out personality and ask some questions like, why do you want to move to Connecticut from uh, Florida, or right, like questions like that to see where they're at. And then we invite them to an audition. And that's where I collaborate with musicians who know way better than I do, and can hear the technical skills and ability. Um, and then we kind of get together and figure out what to do from there. Sometimes there's a third interview, just like follow-up questions. Um, but yeah, I had to do this 2 years ago, so I'm not like looking forward to doing it again. But that was the most helpful, especially the audition piece, right? Because you could tell a lot once you put somebody in front of an organ or other people, like how they work together and what their talent is. Because a resume says one thing, right? Like you can put things on a resume like I once like I saw this online. It was like I handled cash exchanges for a multi-billion-dollar company, and it's like, oh, you were a cashier at McDonald's.
Yeah,
Yeah. No, it's funny,
that's about
Father
right.
Lomnitzer. I imagine these auditions like the movie Whiplash, where you're J.K. Simmons and like screaming at the person and they're like trying to drum very precisely. But I know that's not how it is, but that's
Not
just in
not
my
my
head when
tempo.
I'm seeing, are you fast or are you slow? Right. So not my tempo. Yeah. So, yeah, anyone who's thinking of applying to St. Mary's in Ridgefield, I'm sure it will not be nearly as dramatic. He won't throw cymbals at you. But mainly because you're not looking for someone to play the drums, you're looking for someone to play the organ. So that really helps. Now, Grady, similar into this music point, right? You use a lot of different audio in your posts, right? And some of it is sort of trending audio that you see on other reels, and some of it's more bespoke. So how do you, when you're doing a post, pick one? Because it's tough balance. Like sometimes I see it's really cool. They'll put like sort of more modern music, but with like a I don't know not the word mirage, but a collation of different, like things at mass, right? And it's kind of cool. It's sort of like a pump up video, but at the same time, like it's
Yeah.
mass. And then at the other times, you kind of play something reverent. So how do you kind of straddle that line when you're coming up with the post? What are your thoughts when you're picking the music?
It's a really funny kind of point because some of the videos I've gotten flack from people because they say like, "Oh, it should only be sacred music." But here's my approach to this. It's a little bit more it's less about aesthetic and more about strategy. So for some of these basilicas, obviously the way that these platforms work with audio is when you use a trending audio or you use a popular audio on anything, especially when it's within the app. So like you take it directly in TikTok or directly in Instagram, it just increases your viewership and gives the algorithm like another thing to kind of chew on to like spit it out to different audiences that maybe are resonating with a certain audio. Like, a big thing on TikTok recently was like the Jet 2 holiday sound that was like very popular. So, some videos that wouldn't even really be relevant, they would just add that audio because it just puts it kind of in the momentum of that trend. So sometimes when I add music, it's kind of with that strategy in mind of like, how do I push this to maybe an audience that isn't super pious and holy? Because I think there's different circles of Catholicism, especially on the internet. And not that I want to be in every circle, but I do think that sometimes taking a different approach that's like maybe a little bit more trendy or appealing to a different audience can be beneficial. And some of them that I've done that with have done really well, and I've gotten new followers from it. So I think it works. So I kind of try it. I will say that if there's a basilica that's a little bit more um, solemn, I guess, or like some of these basilicas have gone into, there's like Eucharistic adoration going on, and like I'll get a couple clips, like when I walk in the door and like, Jesus is exposed. I'm not going to put like some inappropriate song that's like not going to honor the Blessed Sacrament being exposed. So like I do put some thought behind it, but no, usually I use like an ambient or some sort of instrumental something. But that's also just kind of my personality. Like even though I love sacred music and I love mass and beauty, I also love music and culture and things like that. So I try to kind of merge the two together a little bit. Um, just kind of my interests. So I have very
I think this
diverse
leads to
music
like a larger point that
interests.
I've been
So,
thinking about with my very limited experience being back on Instagram as a priest. I had it in college and in seminary for like a week. Like the trends versus like transcendental, right? I think of John the 23rd, I believe, right, opening the Second Vatican Council, who's like, we need to open the windows of the church and let people in, right? But or kind of let the church breathe. And I think the hope was, right, that the church would go out and influence the world. But at times, the world has influenced the church. And so there's like this tension between what is trendy and what is transcendental. But I think there could be a harmony there, right? Everyone talks about reading the signs of the times and such, but especially on social media, right? Where the algorithm is all trends, right? How do we, in my own ministry as a priest, even just like on Sunday or talking to like middle school kids, right? How can I use a trend to express the transcendental, right? Because trends come and go, but there is a reflection, I think, most of the time in a good trend that reflects or leads to the transcendentals. So I don't know if that's a tension that you feel or experience. It sounds like, yeah. So how do you use the trends to your
Totally.
advantage because what your whole
Yeah.
point on social media, especially with your own media and the clients you represent, is to express and to preach the truth, right? Which is forever and timeless.
I think that when you go on social media and you see a lot of these hot bucket topics, especially for priests who I manage a lot of social media for, when I say trend, like for them, it might be, okay, let's respond to something that's happening in the culture that is like a trending topic. But I do see, and this is one of my biggest concerns and quite a frustration, is there are these pockets of Catholic creators that are kind of preaching their own perspective on things without referencing the word of God. And it's kind of creating these circles of kind of rogue fake Catholicism that like isn't fully accurate. I put out a post, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 months ago now, about how like a true Catholic influencer is not saying anything new. They're just packaging what's already been said in a way that's kind of plated well or presented in a different way. But there's nothing new. It's all the same thing. Once we start getting into these like areas of new ideas or what I think, you start seeing these pieces of content that are just frankly nuts. I mean, they're just so off the rails of not what the gospel teaches. And I do think this is what's happening in a lot of, it can be the downside of Catholics or just trying to discuss faith topics on social media. I also think that, and I tell this all the time to my clients, and I try to kind of filter these ideas, is it's very easy to start creating content just for the sake of like, oh, it's going to get a ton of views, right? Like I can talk about the most controversial thing or be really clickbaity and get triple the views, but like at what cost? Like what's the purpose of doing that? And that's something that frustrates me, that I do see some creators in the Catholic world do that. My friend Gia, who both of you guys know, Gia Chacon, we talk about this all the time, that it concerns both of us that on social media right now, like because we're in a very divisive culture, and that it seems that everything is about politics or things happening at the White House or in DC, is like Catholic content in a lot of ways, and for a lot of creators, has become just like analyzing politics or like giving a political idea on something. And I think it's incredibly distracting from what we're actually supposed to be creating content for. And it just makes us look angry. Like it makes Catholics look so angry and like flustered. So I try with a lot of my clients, like, if you preach the gospel, yes, you can respond to things happening in the culture, but if you just stick to the gospel and like find new ways of explaining it and things like that, it's going to click. You don't need to respond to everything that some politician does, because then it just politicizes the church in a way that I don't think is fruitful. Like, and you're approaching it backwards. Like, help people in their discernment and in their formation, and then ultimately they're going to make the best decision in the voting booth or in a conversation with a friend or whatever it is. So it's like it needs to kind of be flipped, and I think there's a temptation there to pursue views, but you really need to pursue just what is the ultimate goal of what I'm posting.
Yeah, it's a good point, Grady. And I think, right, John Paul has the quote, right, the church at its best doesn't oppose but propose, right? And so it's trying to see how we can build people up. I know you've told me offline, one of your clients has a sort of a strategy of not really focusing on what they can tear down, but what they can build up, right?
Before something, not against something.
before something. And I think they've been very successful with that, and I think you've greatly been successful with them, because it is very easy to, it's hard to build an argument. It's easy to tear one down, right? But at the same time, our argument that we're pushing, our view, or not pushing, but our worldview, right, is something that's been around for 2,000 years and has stood the test of time and has brought great goodness into the world through our cooperation with it. And what I really like about your social media, Grady, is that you're in it a lot of the time, but also sometimes you have reels where you're not in it at all. It's not really about you, right? It's about the message that you're trying to convey. And yeah, there's fun things you get to do, great, there's cool places you get to go, but it's more of like, share this journey with me, not like, oh, I'm in a private jet, deal with it, right? You're really trying to, share your experiences, share the good news, right? Share these incredible sites that you get to visit, these basilicas, which at least as of recording, so there's 94. How many have you been to, Grady?
I've been to just under 70. At the end of
Just under
this
70.
summer, I'll have done, I think it's 78 by like the second week of September. So then I'm in the final stretch. So I'll be done by, I think, December 1st. I'll probably be done.
Gotcha. So December 1st. All right, everybody, mark your calendars. Grady said he'll be done as of
Stay
recording
tuned
this
on
on
Instagram.
August 16th. But no, I think it'll be really cool. And but at the same time, Grady, when you interact with people on these trips, right, you build a lot of relationships, and most of them are just genuinely good relationships, I think, Grady, right? And so, but also they form partnerships, they form connections, you get a lot of cool experiences out of it. So, Grady, when you're interactive someone, I think this is, networking we're always told about in, undergrad when we were at the Bush School of Business. Oh, you got to network, right? But then you meet these people who are kind of like, what do you do? What can I get from you? What can I sell you? Mm-hmm. Right? What can you give from me, or you give to me? But you kind of take a different approach, Grady. So do you want to maybe share with our listeners a little bit about like when you interact with people, what's your strategy, right? How do you network, Grady? Because you seem to know everybody. Everybody knows Grady, right? And so how do you kind of approach that?
It's been a lot of fun these like past few years, getting to travel a lot and go to a lot of great events and things like that. And I genuinely love it. I mean, to me, just meeting people, I always tell people that being Catholic is the greatest adventure. And I think we forget that there's just so many fruits and amazing people and stories and places. So kind of what you said a few minutes ago, part of what I try to do on social media is to just share how exciting life can be when you see it through a Christian lens and just want to experience just the fruits that we're given. Life isn't all dire and dreary. It's like really exciting. And yes, there's suffering and pain, but it's a blast if you really embrace truth and beauty. So yeah, that's kind of my approach on that. And I think along the way, just meeting people has been pretty remarkable. In the book I'm writing about my Basilica pilgrimage, I have for every basilica like a diary entry of like something that I experienced or just a spiritual fruit from that visit. And in several of them, in a bunch of them actually, there's little moments where I encounter people and really just beautiful moments that have kind of shaped me. So for example, like there was one when I was in Savannah, Georgia, visiting their basilica. I went to their vigil mass on Saturday, and beautiful liturgy, and I loved it. And afterwards, I was leaving. I was just wrapping up a prayer and then was going to exit my pew. And this guy who was sitting like a couple pews behind me just like came over to me and like tapped me on the shoulder as I was in the pew. And I was like, hello. And he said, I have something for you. Our Lady told me to give it to you. And it was Our Lady of Carmel, scapular. And I was like, that was a beautiful little moment. And like, he was so genuine and loving. And it was just a nice little encounter. And I gave him a hug and thanked him. And it was just really sweet. So I just love that. Like, I love just encountering people. And there are so many good people out there. People are, I think, very good if you like give them the chance to be good. And, going on these pilgrimages and these places, like you really see the best in people. It's Charles, we talk about this a lot, that the best relationships aren't like pursuing anything in return. That, I'm not asking them for anything. I'm not doing it for the sake of like building a business, but I just want to like meet people and hear their story. And, we're all working towards the same goal, hopefully. And I think making those friendships is really a great grace. And, yes, it can be good for business, but I don't see it in that lens, to me, it's you just make really good friends and who will back you and support you, and I'll support them, and it's mutually beneficial for all of us, you know?
Yeah, no, I think it's a really good point, Grady. Yeah, and I think we've talked a lot about this, right? It's when you're getting to interact with people, right, and understanding that that's a person there, right, and approaching it first and foremost on that, not oh, where are they on the social ladder in terms of professional or social, right, or however it might be, but just sort of have that, and that's Grady. You're like kind of like a golden retriever when I see you interact with other people. You're always like smiling and like interested and captivated, and it's genuine too. And then when it comes around, when you do have these projects, right, different people come out of the woodwork and they want to help you, they want to get involved, right, they want to support you. And I think, Grady, that's really seeing that play out for your social media, right? You have 20,000 followers, is that right, Grady?
Just under. I'm like
just under.
As of this morning, I'm at 19,995. It's like the
wow,
the
that
longest
is
5-follower growth of my life. So
once you get to 20,000, I think I might just unfollow you just to stick it to you. Yes, but no, that's 5 away. But I think probably by the time this airs, you'll be at 20,000 followers, which is quite a lot. I think I have like 100 at most. But my social media is very different. It's mostly esoteric and geared towards my close family and friends, versus yours, Grady, is
we'll
presentable to the world.
Make you an influencer, Charles.
Yeah, I don't know if we want that. Wake Father Lomnitzer, an influencer, was his social media.
Yeah, exactly.
Meteoric rise happens. But Grady, you also have to recognize that you're like a bit of a Catholic celebrity, right? And so I think there's people come up to you and like the number of people that I've been with you, Grady, and they're like, oh, I follow you, or I know who you are. And so, I mean, yeah, okay, maybe you're not, on the Today Show yet, but that'll come. But do you sort of recognize that you do have a bit of a public persona and the responsibility that carries, right? That like, if you cut someone off in traffic, it's like, well, that was the Grady Connolly, right? With your Tesla or something like that. I don't know if quite as that memorable. But how do you kind of approach that, Grady, recognizing that, your reputation is maybe a little bit more public than the average Catholics?
I think it's across the board for anybody when they behave on the internet or doing anything on the internet, even if you have 100 followers or if you have 100,000, that there is a responsibility that you are, especially in the Catholic place, you are representing Christ when you are interacting. And I worry when I see a lot of Catholic accounts or creators that are just getting involved in arguments online just for the sake of winning the argument. Like there's no actual intention of evangelizing. It's just to be right. Mm-hmm. And I try not to do that. Like if you go on my social media, I never respond to people or like attack an idea that they have, or even like in my content, I don't get into politics or like, I don't do that. To me, it's like, that's not really what I'm here to do. I just want to share joy, and I don't always, hit the mark, and I stumble and get road rage, here and there like everybody else. But I do try to stay focused on being joyful and zealous in my faith, and just share it well and speak about it well and interact with people in a way that makes them feel, loved and heard. And I think, like we talked about a few minutes ago, just not being against something but for something. In my conversations with people, like just listening to them, even if it's a very different philosophy on life or they're in a very different place, I do think there's a great benefit of just being a friend and listening and hearing them out. And hopefully the Holy Spirit will try to use you in any way that he needs to kind of bring about conversion or a thought that might stick with them. But yeah, I do think you got to kind of be prudent. I mean, even on the internet, like I have to take breaks for sure. I mean, I need to be better at it. It's honestly something I'm not good at, is like putting my phone down. But I try to get some quiet time to listen, because it's just, social media is a lot of noise. So you got to learn how to turn it off and listen to God. Otherwise, these other voices on the internet kind of become your God and become a replacement for the Holy Spirit,
Yeah, no, it's a really good point, Grady. Yeah, because I think putting things in right proportion, right, and understanding what the hierarchy is, right? Because if your goal is to get the most followers or to win the argument, right, that's a different strategy than how to be the most effective evangelist, right, or to live out your faith in a proper and fulfilling and sustainable way. But yeah, recognizing that you when you act, particularly in your world as a Catholic content creator, it's not just it's Grady Connolly's reputation, right, which obviously is its own thing, right, but you're representing Christ and His church, right, and so it's like you could be a Catholic content creator, but if you're a jerk at Starbucks, right, that reflects on the church, right? And so we're all parts of the body of Christ, the body of the church.
I always
And so-
tell people that obviously when we die, we're held accountable for how we either cooperated or didn't cooperate with God's will, and whatever that is, throughout our lives. That also includes social media, right? Like the way you behave online is a part of that. And frankly, it's greater risk and greater reward. So if you put out a post that's incredibly confusing or leads people astray, if it has 1 million views on it, you'd think that God will hold you accountable in one way, shape, or form, that your piece of content, your behavior, the thing that you said, impacted 1 million souls. So I think that's a tremendous responsibility. And when you kind of think about it through that lens, I think it does make you second guess, maybe I shouldn't post or say that. So my philosophy is, unless you're okay with God at the end of your life showing you what you posted, and as long as it's leading people closer to him, great. But if it's not, I would recommend ceasing at all costs.
Yeah.
Because, ultimately all this is the only reason why we're doing this is to get people to heaven. That's the only reason. If it's for a personal gain, it's a waste of time. The whole point is for people to fall in love with Jesus. And if it's not doing that, then you're kind of not doing it for the right reasons.
Yeah, no, it's a good point, Grady. I think, the social media is the new town square, right? You used to have kind of different people that would start different movements, right, that maybe weren't fully aligned or were overly focused on the founder. And in a not a productive way. I'm not talking about. There's plenty of great movements that were started by great founders and adopting their charism, but recognizing the impact that has, that will be held to account, right, for every comment that we put out there, right, and that there's a person on the other end of it. I think that's something hard to recognize at times, right?
Definitely.
That whoever vitriolic, right, there is that somebody posts, right, that there's another human being on the other end of it. There's a human being reading that, right, and how to recognize and balance it out. So, Grady, we're going to switch a little bit over here to a lightning round. So
I'm ready.
I'm a big fan of lightning rounds. Father Lomnitzer is not as much. So I'll take the lead on it. And I know some of these are already Grady, but we put this into ChatGPT and said we're interviewing the Grady Connolly, right? And so in terms of lightning round questions, first one, all right. And again, try to keep your answers lightning round brief, right?
Okay.
We're not trying to write
I'll be
War and
brief.
Peace here.
I'll turn off my inner Irish.
You can keep it funny. You can expand a little bit, because this might be. Maybe I'm overselling how much a lightning round could be, but I just love lightning rounds on podcasts.
Okay, I'm ready.
Coffee or tea?
Tea.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say Diet Coke, Grady.
I'm not. Well, okay. I was only given 2 options. If I had to choose beverage, it would be in the hierarchy of Diet Coke, then Celsius, then water, then coffee, or no, then tea, then coffee.
Wow. So you do drink coffee, Grady. I don't think I've ever seen you drink coffee.
I will occasionally do an iced coffee. I do love lattes, but I don't really enjoy coffee as much.
Oh,
It's not my thing.
It's like a bitter bean drink. I know
need a
Father
Diet
Lomnitzer
Coke.
loves coffee.
don't
So, but yes, Diet
understand
Coke.
people who
So
don't
that's the
drink
answer. All right. Favorite underrated saint?
I'm going to name a soon-to-be saint, Blessed Bartolo Longo. He's going to be
Tolo.
canonized October 19th. He was a previous satanic priest who became a Third Order Dominican, and he was the one who built the Our Lady of Pompeii shrine in Italy. So he's amazing. I think he's going to be a big intercessor for this generation, considering the lore of witchcraft and all that's going on there. So yeah, he's incredible, and a lot of people don't know about him yet, but I think they will.
Gotcha. That's great. All right. Most embarrassing moment on social media?
Embarrassing moment. I mean, I haven't had like a career-shattering embarrassment,
Yeah.
but I have had moments where, like, on the captions, like where you put the text that's going along, like with the person speaking, I have like missed, like, because I always use AI to do them, but then I have to manually edit all of the words, because especially in the Catholic world, we have a lot of words that AI does not understand. So I have had moments where I forget to fix them or miss something, and it says something completely outlandish and like embarrassing and terrible. So that has happened a few times, but I try to catch them before they go public.
I know, Grady, we give you a hard time, a group chat we're in, whenever you post a bishop's title and we say, oh, no, that's not the right one. It's this or that. It's eminence or excellency. And
I'm
then you
not
panic.
perfect,
And then you realize
still...
we're pulling this rug out for you. But no, Grady, you're very polished. So there's not a lot there. All right. If you could have dinner with one person from church history besides our Blessed Lord or our Blessed Mother, who would it be?
I mean, it'd be Our Lady, but maybe St. Paul. I feel like that'd be really interesting. Hear his conversion story and just his.
We know his conversion story. It's in the Bible.
Yeah. But have over a Diet Coke, talk about it. I think it'd be really interesting. Yeah, probably St. Paul.
St. Paul.
That'd be good. Maybe Peter. One of them.
Yeah. Well, Paul's very entrepreneurial, starting up all those churches and bouncing around. So
yeah, for sure.
It's very Grady. All right. Weirdest DM you have received?
I've gotten, working a lot with exorcists, I've gotten some pretty bizarre DMs or people trying to get to one of the exorcists for help or like to get in touch with them. And then they find out that I do their social media. And then I get the barrage of messages, which I always try to, a lot of these people are suffering or, have emotional or spiritual problems, whatever it is. So, approach it with charity or whatnot. But yeah, I've gotten some pretty interesting stories of people just spilling their entire life in the DMs.
Oh, wow. That's exciting, Grady. Mine is mostly like a spam. I've won a vacation or my car warranty is expired. I don't have a car.
Yeah,
so,
or like gain 1,000 followers in 5 minutes, by doing this thing,
Yeah. All right. Most useful thing you've bought under $50?
I guess one that I love, I'm actually using it right now, it's called an Octobuddy. For a content creator, it's like the best thing ever. It's like a little square or a circle of suction cups, and you stick it to the back of your phone, and then I can put it anywhere, like on a wall or a refrigerator, like whatever, so that if you're trying to film content on your own, instead of having to carry a tripod, you can just stick your phone to something and record. So yeah, that's been kind of my thing.
And this is not a paid promotion, Grady. That's just a genuine
just a genuine endorsement.
All right. And then last one from the lightning round here. What's the Catholic stereotype you secretly love?
That we love incense. I mean, more smoke, the better. I think people think it's like weird sometimes, but I love it. I'm all in on it.
Incense. I think Father Lomnitzer is very pro incense too. So
smoke them out.
Smells and bells.
Yes. So he's incensed by incense, right? Some people are, but it's definitely a unique Catholic thing. So, all right, well, Grady, we very much appreciate you taking the time to join us here. Where can people follow you and learn more about what you're working on?
Yeah, you can follow me on social media at the Grady Connolly on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn. Instagram's kind of my primary where most of my projects go, or my website, gradyjconnolly.com. That has my different projects and apostolates I'm working on and articles I've written, things like that. So check them out. And I am going to be putting out a book in 2026 of all the basilicas in the country and my journey to those with Ave Maria Press. So check that out. I'll be posting about it probably early 2026.
Sounds good. I think we should clarify how to spell Connolly because it's I thought I was your friend for a long time. I'll tell you how.
Connolly. No E's, double L's. Different.
Yeah, Connolly. So at the Grady Connolly on Instagram and other places. So we appreciate you joining us. Any closing words from Grady, your father here?
Well, thanks for having me, and I'm glad you guys are doing this show. I think it's great, and I think the world of both of you. So I'm excited to see how it grows.
Yeah, well, we appreciate you joining us, Grady. And we're honored that you're our first guest here. And this will go viral just like everything else you do. And we'll be rich and famous and on a yacht doing the next episode.
Excellent.
So
I can't wait.
All right. Thanks, Grady. We'll talk
guys.
soon.